Hey everybody, welcome back to Home Studio Pro. This video, I'm here to show you my entire signal chain for the Sennheiser MKH-416 microphone. I've got the Universal Audio Apollo Twin X on my desk. What you're seeing here on the screen is the console software side of it, how I can manipulate and control all of the different plugins. Okay, so this mic going straight into the Apollo, there's no other inline preamp or anything needed. It's a phantom powered microphone, so phantom power is on. As you can see, I'm boosting it about 28.5 dB with the Unison preamp here, which happens to be the SSL 4000E channel strip. So there's my gain. The transformer is off. Well, I just turned it back on, but it's generally off. And then in the dynamics section, right, this being a channel strip, it's got compression, it's got expansion, it's got low and high cuts, EQs. We'll go through all this here, but nothing doing in terms of compression here. That comes later on. But I am using the expander, and you can see my settings here, the range just below 5, the threshold just above -12, really fast attack and release. And you'll see when I'm silent, watch these LEDs right here. -6. I found that to be kind of a sweet spot of expansion and noise reduction. This mic is not very noisy to begin with, not a lot of self-noise. This room is acoustically treated, but I'm just trying to get as much of those artifacts out of the recording as possible. So when I'm quiet, the recording is quiet. There's an airplane. I can barely hear it going above us right now. Maybe you couldn't even hear that because of this expansion. So those are my settings for expansion. Here's it on. Watch, let me turn it off. Maybe you hear and see a difference there. Okay, low cutting and high cutting, there's really nothing going on here. I'll show you where I low cut it later on. Now we get into the EQ section here. High frequency, I'm boosting, each one of these dots, by the way, is 3 dB, maybe 1.5 at about 4,000 hertz. I do this with a lot of my microphones to emphasize the speech region. So that's what's going on here. Then in terms of the high mids, I'm cutting at about 6,500. That's essentially my de-essing going on right here. Very tight Q. I'm laser focused in on about that 6,500 region. Then on the low mids, I'm also cutting at about 3 dB, 250 hertz. That's a common muddy spot for me. And let me just show you, when I bring it back up here, I feel like the mic in my voice has kind of a honky, nasally sound to it. So I always take that back out there. I do this with a lot of microphones, and the 416 is no different. And then on the bottom end here, on the low frequency, on the bell curve, boosting at about 3 and change dB at 100 hertz. I'm giving it some low presence. This mic generally has some, but to really make it sound like a large diaphragm condenser, I'm giving it a little bit more of a low end push right there. I've got the slider up here, maybe 1.5, 2 dBs. I'm also getting just a little bit more from the output knob. I want to hear, the sound of this plugin and the effects of the EQ. So I'm boosting it a little bit there. Now, up next, you'll see the 1176 low noise. I'm not using it. It's grayed out. I previously used it in other versions, prior versions of this signal chain, but I don't use it anymore. So up next is the Neve 1073 Legacy plugin. Not boosting here at all. I'm actually cutting just a little bit on the very top end. I believe this is hard set at like 14,000 hertz. So this is way up there if I were to boost it, but it's also cutting way up there just a hair, just to kind of tame the high end of this microphone. I'm also cutting in the 700 hertz range here in terms of the mids. I believe each one of these dots are about 2 dB. So just a little bit, just to try and cut out some more of that mud below the speech frequencies. I'm also boosting again here at, is that 80 hertz, 60 hertz? 60 hertz, sorry, I had to look at the screen closer. Boosting at 60 to really give a lower, even a lower boost than that 100 hertz boost you saw on the SSL. I'm really trying to fill in, so maybe when I get close here, I can really get that deep sound. I'm trying to just, fill in the bottom end. I'm also cutting, by the way, at 80 hertz here, low cutting. So I know what you're saying. Why would you be boosting below where you're low cutting? It's just the sound. Like, you experiment. That's what this is all about, experimenting with the sound. I don't want it to get too muddy down there. I feel like I found the right balance of boosting, but not having it get too muddy in like the 60 to 80 hertz range. Okay, all of that brings us to the LA2A. This is my final plug-in of the chain. I always put compression last, right? I put the EQ and all the cuts first and then compression last to really glue everything together. And this is one of my favorite compressors. I use this on pretty much every vocal chain I have. I'm on limit mode. The emphasis is actually around 3 o'clock. Surprise. Usually I have this more in like the 230 range. Let me just adjust it here and see if it makes a ton of difference. Not really. Not really. If I bring it up even more, yeah, not so much. Anyway, it's at the 3 o'clock range. Gain there at about 35. Peak reduction a little bit over 40. And you can see here when I talk, the needle is constantly moving. That's the optimal goal of a good compressor, that it's working, right? It's working to a little bit. The needle is alive. I don't want to see this thing, by the way, slammed all the way up over here. Obviously, that changed the entire sound. But 0 to -3 dB for normal speech, like you're seeing it, that is what I've found is the optimal range of gain reduction on the LA2A. That's when you know that your gain staging is correct and that it's not smashing your sound, it's not altering your sound greatly. This optical compressor is working best when it's gain reducing anywhere from 0 to -3 under normal speech. Now, if I yell into the microphone now, right? I really yelled right there. It didn't go up that high. This thing is able to cover you, but you can see the needle got slammed. So I don't really want it to be over there on a consistent basis. I should let you hear this mic unprocessed. So let's do that. Everything you've been hearing right through the chain, now let's listen to it entirely clean. Okay, here's the microphone, 37 dB of gain. And yeah, it sounds different, right? It doesn't have that low end boost. It has some other middle frequencies, and this sounds fine. I've always said that I really enjoy this microphone and its frequency response curve straight out of the box. I think it's got a good sound to it. If I didn't have the ability to apply compression or EQ, I'm very happy and content with this sound. Obviously, I process it for a reason, to sweeten it, to get that, that real polished sound. But in the end, and you can see here, by the way, I guess I never noticed that the CL1B appeared here. There's a bunch of other stuff in this in this preset that I don't use. There's no plugins right now. It's just 37 dB, which you can see, and that's it. So hopefully you got a sound and a sample of what this mic is like with no processing. Let's go back and just finish it like this. So the Sennheiser MKH-416, the Universal Audio Apollo Twin X. Two things that I love a lot. This mic's great. The processing is great. I actually use this mic on a pretty regular basis with the Revelator, the PreSonus Revelator IO24. So maybe I'll do eventually a separate video on that from the remote location where I do live streams. But for here in the home studio, I think this is a really good setup. If you like this type of content, don't forget to subscribe to Home Studio Pro. Also, thumbs up on this video if it gave you some value. See you next time.